So good afternoon. Here we are, and I'm delighted to offer this hour-long event. It's an English event forming part of the Dando Vida a la Muerte Festival. And so welcome to anybody who's joining us this afternoon and to our English-speaking community here in Spain and beyond, hopefully. So I'm joined by two women who, for me, have inspired me to consider how my response would have been in the same situation, because we live in a society that doesn't want us to talk about death. And this is the whole purpose of the Giving Life to Death Festival. We live in a society that's created a taboo around the subject. And so when we as outsiders, and I'm referring to myself in this instance, when we as outsiders are faced with somebody else's experience, it's a very confusing moment for us because we're not sure how to act. And so with my guests today, they are women, mothers, whose children have died. They've been on their own journeys of discovery, filled with pain, filled with enlightenment, filled with all sorts of things that they will talk about. Even the fact that there is no name for the role of being a parent who loses a child, whereas we've been used to the word widow and widower. So one of them will talk about the book of that name and why she wrote the book. But I think without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to my guests. I'm delighted that I have Mansha Daryanani from Canaries. And welcome, Mansha. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Glenys. It's a pleasure.
Excellent. And here from Mallorca, I'm joined by Sáez, who is all the way over on the other side of the island from where I am in Mallorca. Welcome, Isa.
Hello.
So I think we had a sort of script that we were going to follow, but in a way, I feel that I know nothing really of your journey, and I don't know whether it's something that is for me to ask about, because I was talking to another mother in the last couple of days, and I was inviting her to join us today because her loss of her son is very recent. And her answer to me was she felt that she could not take on board any more stories of this kind. So perhaps, Mansha, because you're 6 years down the road from the death of your daughter, Madeline, perhaps you can just talk to us about where you are now and what it's been like. And if you want to share your story, please do.
Yeah, sure. 6 years ago, my twin daughter passed away. Since then to now, the journey has been a roller coaster of emotions where I have been very sad, very depressed, isolated. My grieving was very, very high. I couldn't even stand up for a long time because dealing with that grief and even loss, it was very, very hard for me. But now it's been 6 years during that journey. I just brought a book. The book started as a diary where I bought it just 3-4 months later when she passed away. And it was a way just to put in paper, even to share with that diary all my emotions during that process. Since 1 year, 2 years, it took me 2-3 years to write it. And then after that, I don't know why, I just thought of maybe make a point to just open it and see what it's written there, how I was during that period. And I realized that it was a very dramatic journey, but at the same time overwhelming, because I learned a lot. Not in the sense that you learn about the loss, but it's about the journey with my family, how we cope it with the loss, and even we become more stronger. we started talking about the loss, the grieving, how we was dealing with the loss of my daughter, and even how she was dealing, my older daughter. That was not the big surprise for me, because I thought that children doesn't deal with that kind of loss as we do as an adult. But I realized that she was suffering also. She was trying to make our family very, very strong, and at the same time, we don't fail, cry, or just crack down. No, she was all the time happy, trying to make us all the time very, very strong, very strong. So that it was the first thing that I did with my diary. It turned it around as a family book where you can find out the journey, but at the same time, there are a lot of lessons that we did us together, and the people who also helped me with a lot of information, and they try to just put a lot of love, help, information, and even there is a soul searching inside of me that I was looking for.
Okay, thank you, Mansha, because your book is called Viloma.
Yes.
And Viloma is the term for parents who have lost a child.
Yes. Yes.
And just point out that Madeleine was a twin.
Yes.
So it was her twin sister that was here. Excuse me. If we can just go to Isa, perhaps you can share. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Isa, you can share, because you've read Mansha's book, haven't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And how was that for you in your journey, which is 2.5 years since your son Juan James died? So how is it for you?
Well, the book of Mansha had some points with my own story, and it was helpful to read it. It made me, I felt I could identify myself in some of the situations, and well, it's still very hard, especially for my family. I have learned a lot. My son passed away in an accident, and it was very sudden. And we were on a holiday. We were doing a holiday together, the four of us, and well, it was just very hard. But we did have lots of help from everybody, and but well, yeah, it was still very hard anyway, but we're learning from it.
And your husband, and Juan James's brother Mark, and you're all in a different place, obviously, with your grieving.
Yeah. Well, I started going to a grieving group that really helped me a lot, and now I just wanted to find a sense, a meaning to what happened to us. So that's why I'm helping you, and I'm doing a course about grieving. And because years ago, long time before I had my children, I studied psychology, and then I would like to be able to help people, and people that are going through the same thing that I'm going through in a way. Yeah.
It's almost like the fact that you say to help people.
Yes.
Mansha, what do you think it's your duty to help us understand?
I honestly, if I tell you about the journey of my book, I realized that while I was preparing the book and putting all together, all the information, even the diary post, the information, when I put it all together, I realized that it was a very big thing for me, because then I got the responsibility to do it well, and also it's a real story with real people, and I just try to make it as real as possible for people to understand how we deal with this kind of grieving and loss. So for me, it was a very big responsibility. At the same time, helping people, it became a very big part of my journey. I don't know how turn it around, but I realized later on when the book was with me and I started selling, then I realized how big was my change and my responsibility towards the book.
It's interesting because you've both talked about almost having expectations about how people perhaps could have acted with you.
Yes.
And the disappointment because they surprisingly didn't act as you had thought they might. This, of course, is compounded by the fact that we don't talk about death, so we haven't got the tools. Do you think there's something that we should know that, you know, there's something that you would wish you could hear more often than the stuff you may have heard?
Well, Isa first, or maybe me. I don't mind.
First,
Isa's something. Yeah, Isa.
Sorry, the sound is not very good for me.
Okay, well, Mansha, you answer that.
Sorry.
Don't worry, Isa. You just sort yourself out, and we'll get Mansha back. Mansha.
Okay.
Honestly speaking, I learned a lot about that because you always have this kind of expectation of people to be more kind, just come forward to ask you about how you're dealing with your grieving, but only with your family members, your sister, brothers, uncles, aunties, all the people you are surrounded by all the time. And that happened to me. The people who I expected that I wanted them to be next to me and hold my hand and just listen to my feelings and be there, just be there. They were. But when we are talking about the society, the rules of the society are completely different. There are people who doesn't know how to cope it. There are people who call me and try to just meet me with my child. In my case, it was surprising because I never expect them to call me. They call me, they just send me a message, they ask me how I was dealing with my situation, if we can meet together for a coffee. And I got surprised because I never expect that people to call me. But the people I expected, they just put a step back and they were like holding. I don't know if they were very afraid of the fact that they are very close to me and they didn't know how to cope with the situation, even talk about what is going on, because they are very close to me. They know me since my childhood. For example, there are people who did. So I understood that it hurts. Maybe they feel or they felt that I was very close to them and they couldn't manage to look me in that situation. So I understood there are people who doesn't know how to do it. I have to respect that position. I have to respect their decisions also. But at the same time, the expectations is always there. And later on, after a few months or maybe a year, that people came. They have to, I have to understand that maybe it's hard for me, it's hard for them. But slowly, the people come forward you, they talk to you, but not at the first moment.
It's interesting because I feel that sometimes we, the opposition to you, as it were, we can sort of hijack your grief, as it were. And I see that in the sort of, when somebody dies, we really suddenly take over and sort of own it, whereas it belongs to a family.
Yeah, but you know what happened? It was a very small child. It was only 30, she was only 2.5. We are a very small society. It was so hard for everyone that they couldn't even imagine that all the people who surrounds me, who knows me very well, they are more or less my age. They have children also. So they were looking at me and they were thinking about the same, that maybe they can be in the same situation. So that's why later on, after a few months, I understood that maybe it's very hard to them to look at me and see that I was with my grief, with my child. but I'm egoist. I mean, I expected that in the first place, but then I forgive them absolutely. But then I realized that people come to me. Later
Yeah.
on they came, but at the beginning I didn't understand it because I was with my own loss, with my own this whole huge situation of looking at my family, at my house. They were all the time looking at me, looking at my daughter, and it was overwhelming on the time. Since
Yeah.
the beginning, after 3-4 months, then I realized in the night that the nights were very, very awful. During the nights, it was the awful time of my grieving, because I realized that it was everything was quiet, and I could see my own loss, my own emotions arise during the night. So I thought, even I am a mother, they are parents also. Maybe they are looking at me and they're, confronting the idea that maybe they can be in the same position as me. So I have to understand that. I
Yeah.
can't expect the society to be a certain way.
And for you, Isa, you had the added sort of bad behavior, really, that Joanne James had died in a road traffic accident in England, and it came behind 4 other deaths of Mallorquins abroad, and
Oh,
of course was front page news. So you had to deal with not being the one to share that news. I mean, that must have been a
yeah,
real.
yeah. Yeah, I found that very upsetting because people, we were in England, we had to stay longer. We just did a very short trip to England, and we were supposed to come back the same day where everything happened. So we ended up staying there for about 9 or 10 days more. And people from Mallorca, they were sharing with us that the accident had been front page on the local newspapers as well, the local TV. They didn't ask for anything, the press, so they didn't ask us. And I thought, for me, in that moment, it was just the beginning. Just it was very upsetting. I suppose they were only doing their job, but I don't know. In a way, I thought they should. Some people even didn't know. Some relatives, some friends, we hardly had time to tell them. So I don't know. It was. I didn't like it. But I don't know if I got. I don't know, but I just didn't like it. I found it very hard seeing that. There, and even a presenter in next to my school. I don't know. It was a bit hard. Yeah, it was very hard actually. No, a bit very hard.
It's almost like this whole sort of digital access we have to the world, that we feel that it's in our place to be sharing news. That I personally, when I do see somebody share something on Facebook, I do think, is it your place to share the news of somebody else? So that's something that I think we could learn from. What would you say, Isa, then? What are the lessons that this journey, it's only been 2.5 years, and whereas Mansha is 6 years. I mean, there's no real time, but there is time, which Mansha will explain in a minute. But for you, Isa, what is the real what are the lessons that you've been learning on this journey that have
So
been.
we need to appreciate life and enjoy it, and don't hold any grudges. You say in English grudges, then don't hold any bad feelings for anyone, because you never know. You never know what's going to happen, and feeling angry or with someone, it doesn't make your life very nice. Make you miserable. So there's not much point in doing that. You need to try to work out your feelings somehow, and it's very important to look inside yourself, and obviously know that death is next to you, like Dr. Benito yesterday was saying, like a parrot. You don't have to think about it all the time, but don't avoid it. Don't. It's there, and no one knows when it's gonna happen. And for me as well, I just feel my son. He was a gift, and his life was. He appreciated life really, really a lot, and enjoyed his life a lot. And he taught us lots of lessons. He's still teaching me lessons somehow. So, well, that's very. They were very important lessons. We still miss him a lot, and I will miss him all my life until I meet him again. But yeah, we need to keep going.
He was a sunny character, wasn't he, Juan?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, and he had a lot of wisdom as well.
Yeah.
For a young person, he gave you a lot of clues, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He made, once he watched this film called The Bucket List, that
Right.
and then he gave him the idea to do he was 12 years old, to do his own bucket list, and I still have his own bucket list, and he was crossing over some things that he did, and yeah, I don't know, even if he watched the film, it's just strange that he thought about doing that. And then he used to say he wanted to, in his funeral, Mommy, in my funeral, I want this song of very weird song, anyway, AC/DC, Highway to Hell. He wanted this song, and he wanted a party and a Viking funeral. And I was thinking, why are you saying all that? And I used to say to him, I don't want to go to your funeral. You're going to go to mine. But unfortunately, somehow, I don't know, he had this presentimiento, this feeling, or I don't know what it was. But
and he didn't have a problem with it, which is so beautiful. The fact that he had this idea, Viking funeral, AC/DC playing, you know, and expecting you to be there.
Yeah. And yeah, I didn't. If it was now, I would ask him more questions in a different way. but yeah,
right?
Just.
Wow.
So, Mansha, what would you say for you then? I mean, Juan James, as always, I didn't know him, but I feel like, wow, what a special character. What would you say for you, Mansha? You always have said that writing your diary almost immediately after Madeleine went was something that gave you the ability to get through the days.
Yes, sometimes I used to write for days, then I stopped it for months because it was very frustrating and very hard sometimes to write every kind of emotion that I was going through with my daughter. Even the way I was crying, sitting down for hours, crying without stopping, and writing each detail in the diary, it took me a while to write it. So sometimes I write for months and then I stop it, and then I again retake it. And it took me 3 years for that reason. And the lessons I learned, there are many, but the biggest lesson I could say right now is to forgive, the forgiveness. For me, yes.
And who have you forgiven?
Destiny, life, myself.
Right.
Myself, first of all, because I always have this guiltiness inside of me that maybe I did something wrong. That's why she died, because I didn't care about her the way I should. And that point, it was in my mind all the time that maybe I did a mistake. I didn't take care of her, did something wrong, because the doctors in the beginning, they did explain to me what happened. But when she died, and I knew why she died, because of this illness that it doesn't have any cure. Then I started working my forgiveness and guiltiness. First, it was guiltiness because I couldn't understand how she died that way. It was very sudden, like she said, Isa, is when you wake up in the morning and you never expect that this thing is going to happen to you. You see these people in the TV, news all the time, that people are dying, accidents happen. Everyone is going through a lot of up and down in the life. But when you see yourself in that position, it's very hard, very hard. So when I woke up in the morning, she was sick, but never expected to die. It's like you go to the doctor, they will give you treatment or maybe some kind of antibiotics, and then it will be everything all right. It always happens like that when you have a small child. But when you go to the hospital and everything is getting worse and worse and worse, and then you feel this kind of guiltiness that, oh my God, what happened? What I did wrong? So I had to work that, my guiltiness, and then forgiveness. It was the highest point of my life. Forgiving not everything, but each thing that is surrounding my life, like my myself, the destiny, that this thing is meant to happen in my life. It was a destiny.
Wow.
And I have to accept it. Once I started working at that, then I realized that life, it can be not easier, but much happier, easier, and you can go from one stage to another. You have to climb each step to become not normal, but become happy and content, and try to continue your life as far as my consent, the best way I can, the best version of me. I just want my daughter, wherever she is right now, she could, wherever she is, she could look at me and be proud of me, and she could say, this is the best version of my mother.
Wow.
That is something I have worked really hard, and I have listening to. I've just started listening to Isa, and I think it will take time to reach that point, but she's going to the right way because she's very strong. I'm very surprised, but she's very strong. She has working really hard to be climbing each part of that process, and it takes time, obviously. But once you reach that point, when you get this kind of happiness and you are more calm and you are more involved in your regular life, you realize that you don't have to be feeling guilty all the time. It's not that you're forgiving your daughter or your son. It's like you have to give them the best version of you.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you, Mansha, because it's interesting. I would imagine that even, and not just talking about other Vilomas in the same situation, but generally, this idea of guilt that we carry. Did we act in time? Were we there at the end? I mean, especially the pandemic has added a lot more guilt to people's lives when they haven't been able to be accompanying their loved ones or have the funeral that perhaps they wanted. Sure. How, Isa, how have you worked that guilt of maybe we should not have gone on holiday, maybe he should not have gone out? You know, what did you have the same sort of guilt? Did you have you worked on the forgiveness?
Yeah. He wanted to stay in Mallorca, so yeah, you think all sorts of things, and then thinking, well, there wasn't anyone on the road, just this van, and it happened to this guy, this man finished his work earlier. So you start thinking, he stopped in a petrol station. Joan was almost. My son Joan was almost on the pavement. He was almost just crossing the road, almost there. So at the end, is what she said, destiny is it was meant to happen, and somehow his soul known. Some part of my son must have known that something like that was going to happen to him. I don't know, but yeah, you think of why does that have to happen to us? Why? You do a lot of that, and you have to.
That is the question all the time. Why?
And try to ask. So sorry, trying to ask why is that now instead of trying asking why it happened, because I know I'm not going to find the answer. Is what do I have to? What can I learn from it? What for? What was the reason, the purpose of this? Why did I'm trying to find a purpose, a meaning to it, even if it's well, I really miss him, and I don't want to change this fact, but it's not. I'm not asking why anymore.
Isa, you've just touched on this, so this is for both of you, because there is a belief in the world that there's a pre-birth planning agreement. So do both of you, because Isa, you just touched on that, it's almost as though that was obvious with him asking for the Viking funeral and AC/DC. Do you think that's true, Isa? Is that something that, does it make sense to you? Is it any comfort to you?
It does make sense, and it gives me comfort thinking that I didn't know anything about it before Yuan died. I just investigated and started to research, and it was giving me comfort listening to videos on YouTube about all these sort of things. And then I found a book about it called My Soul's Plan, My Soul's Gift, and then I read that book, and I heard about it from other sources as well. So it does make a lot of sense, and it gives me a lot of comfort thinking there was like a plan.
And you, Mansha, because there was a twin involved as well.
Yes. It's very strange because they were very, very connected. They were very, very friendly to each other. I never expected, never in my life, that this is gonna happen to me. But then after she passed away, my daughter started talking about, okay, now I'm your daughter, and she's away. She's where she's supposed to be. So in the story, when I wrote the book, she's telling me that I mean to be here with you, and she was here because she came with me. She was not from this world. So my thing is that all the people who come from heaven, or whatever you want to call it, and they are with us, is because they want to give you not a very big lesson about life, but they are here with you because they want to achieve something. And you are the chosen one was going to be here for them. Wow. To hold their hands, to give the opportunity, to make the point, whatever they have come here for, and then they pass away, or they go back to where they belong. This is the story, the overall story of the book, but it's not that. But the main thing is that Mania, my daughter, and Madeleine and Megan in the book, they are all the time telling me the same thing, that we are here because we have a mission. And that mission means that we have to choose the family that allow us to become or achieve that mission. So now she's all the time telling me the same thing. We are both one, but she came with me because she chose you. But now here, I'm your daughter. That's all. That's the thing. So I think your son, if I'm not mistaken, your son, that somehow he was telling you some points about maybe it's going to happen, but not that the way you will realize, no, if he's talking about the funeral, now it's going to be happening next after that. No, but it's like now you're thinking about that because he's not here anymore. But if you think about few things that all the time is happening surrounding these people who are next to you and they pass away, they give you some tips.
Yeah. I learned that after,
right? Yes. And they all the time give you some lessons. Now they are twins. So at the same time, for me, it was very hard because it's not like you are not looking the face or remember the face of your child. They are the same. They are identical twins. So it's not point that I can forget her face. Wow. So she's telling me, Mom, I'm Mania. I'm Megan, not Madeleine. Don't confuse me. Sometimes I was looking about some points or some things that she has as an essence in her personality. I was looking about that in her. It was my mistake, but it was my grieving also. My way of just, overcome my situation. But then I learned, we all together learn how to deal and cope with the loss of our daughter and her sister. It's very strange, but it's true. They give you some tips. She gave me after that, and your son gave you before. It's very strange.
I feel that what you've said, Mansha, about they're looking for the best of you.
Yeah, the best version. Yeah.
Yeah. You both have really embarked on this journey with, although you were thrown into the journey of the new discovery of yourselves,
Yes.
you've both embraced it from what you've said. And of course, you can't say how it would have been if you hadn't embraced it. But in the experience of the death cafes that we've been doing here in Mallorca, sorry, this is like, we're live, but the death cafe experience has brought us, especially mothers, who their experience happened 40 years ago. True. When all around them, almost it was like in Spain, just put the black clothes on. Wherever it happened, it was keep that information to yourself and carry on as normal. In a way, luckily, we're not in those times, but I'm struck by you, Mansha, how you are in this experience. I've only just met you now, so it's 6 years down the road, but I see this really light person who obviously had those horrific nights, those sleepless nights, the pain, the physical pain, and then dealing with people all around you. I feel for those mothers, because I think there's still this trace of, how come she's so good? How come she's okay?
That's why I want to share my story with the book. I just want to help these people to understand they are not alone. They are not, they don't have to feel ashamed. They don't have to feel guilty, because if you overcome the loss of your child, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're a bad mother because you are just trying to embrace life in another way. You have the right to be happy. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person, but it has to be someone to care about you, look after you, and then you have to have the right people. You have to surround to people who are positive. You have to delete the negative people surrounding you and allow people, positive people surround you. That's the best way to just embrace the life the another way, and you have positive thinking. It's very important to have a positive thinking, to just embrace these kind of things. Otherwise, it's very difficult, because if you are surrounding yourself all the time with negative people, and even these people who are lost children 14, 15, even 30 years ago, the society was different. The time was different. Talking about the loss, it was like something that you have to be ashamed. You can't share with everyone. Now we are very open. Now we have this Dead Cafe, we have this festival. It gives us, Isa, and us, people like us, to talk openly about how we feel. And it's a very good platform. It's a very good thing. It's a blessing for us to allow to express everything that we are going through without feeling ashamed, without feeling guilty, without feeling bad about embracing another way of life, because we have to. Otherwise, there is no point. If you lost your child and you don't look the life another way and just move forward, you are not helping your child, you are not helping yourself, you're not helping your family, your surrounding. It doesn't help you anyways. There is no turning point in your life.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. I tried that. I tried that to become, more close about me, my feelings, don't share with anyone. I was very depressed. Even I talked with my sisters, with my family, my husband. I realized how he was dealing with his own grieving, and it was very tough. But then I realized the positive feedback and things I had absorbed with all the good things I was doing beside of the book, with my family, with my daughter. So I thought, okay, this is good. Whatever I'm doing is good. If it's positive for my life and for myself, why don't embrace it? Where's the point of not doing that? So that's why I learned that. Then I suddenly get the chance to meet you, Nuria, this festival. So I thought, okay, this is destiny. I mean, when you try to do good things for people, beside the book, anything you do for your life, for people, and even if you have someone who is going through a low phase, like us, we did, you are doing a good thing. So that feedback, you will receive it later on, maybe now or later, but you will receive it. And now I'm receiving the feedback. So I'm very happy and content.
Excellent. And I want to ask then, that they say, when we talk about statistics, for a couple who have who've had this situation of their child dying, it's, you know, it's very difficult to cope with the grief of your partner, yet both of you are still together with your husbands. And grief is a journey. Isa, how has it, what helped you to not sort of fall into not being able to cope with your husband and your son? What helped you in that personal strait of your grief? What has helped? Has it been talking to people, like Mansha says, surrounding yourself with positive people?
Oh yeah, definitely. Working inside, working myself, working my feelings, one thing, and my love to them, and then having space for me as well, for doing the things I think I should do, having some time for myself, and I don't know. So I think that I feel like, well, especially I love them, and then that makes it easy, but as well I need time for myself, and I try to find this time and to do things I feel they are important to me, I suppose.
And do you feel, both of you, that the sort of men in your life are dealing with it in a completely different way? You know, are they going to grief share groups? Are they finding somebody to talk to? Are they, you know, meeting up, going to death cafes? Mansha, what is your husband? How did he cope?
Well, it's a very difficult question because I don't know how to answer that, because we have shared certain things about how we are, you know, coping with the grieving in the beginning when she passed away. But he preferred to be quiet. He's a very quiet, he's not isolated person, but he's used to keep himself, all his feeling for himself. He used to share with her daughter. I realized that while he was with her and bonding that relationship with her helped him a lot, more than me, because we used to talk to each other about how we are trying to just cope with the situation, to be with my daughter. And slowly we learn how to have our own space. Like Isa said, is very important, because he used to cry at nights when I was sleeping and we were sleeping, but I used to cry during the morning. So I was like, when I was going to the kindergarten at that time, I used to drop dead. So I realized that the other one was not there. I used to cry every time. It's like un mar de lágrimas, like we say in Spanish, like all the time crying. Anytime it was okay for me. I couldn't stop myself, but he couldn't do it. He preferred to do it in the night. So the bonding, it's very important. But the most important thing that I learned about our relationship is like we have to separate ourselves and try to do the grieving separately. It was very important, because then you started, you know, arguing about, okay, now I can't see you crying all the time. What's wrong with you? Are you okay, or there is something wrong, or you want to talk with someone? Then I realized that we started talking, and then we didn't crash. But then I understood what he was going through. Otherwise, we never spoke since the beginning, passing through maybe 2-3 months. Then I realized that something was wrong, because we never talked to each other that way. When we did, when we realized that we started our duel, we started our grieving, but we did it separately, and we did together with the daughter. I don't know why the formula that we use it is like, okay, now we are gonna cry, or we are gonna, you know, cope with the grieving separately, maybe in the night or during the day, it doesn't matter. But when we were like, okay, now we feel like we would like to have more fun, or try to become more like have that bonding of family, we used to look for Vanya, my daughter, Megan. It's like Megan was helping us to become a family again, a new family again. That was something that was very magical, honestly speaking, very magical. Like
And,
when
and it's interesting that you were saying right at the very beginning that she took on a quite an interesting role for one so young, because she was 2.5.
2.5 years.
But for Issa, Juan James' brother was 12, wasn't he? So
13,
he's sort of
yeah.
emerging into adolescence, which is in itself a complicated part of life. How has it been for you? I love what Mansha's just said, because you couldn't cope together, and then you found a way, realizing that you had to find something that worked for all. So Issa, what works for you? Or are you still finding that place?
Yeah, I think we are still finding that. Yeah. I don't know. Well, they both, we all have gone to therapy, and for my husband didn't work going to a group, and he prefers individual therapy. And definitely my son goes to therapy as well. And well, we try to find times together where we do activities together, and it's
And
trying to find what works for us. And the adolescent teenagers, adolescents are a bit hard anyway.
yeah, and Mansha, I remember when we the three of us started talking about today, you were very keen to sort of point out to Issa, look where I am, this is 6 years down the road. So tell us about that, please, where you are today.
It's very difficult because it's not like I'm here right now after 6 years. Like this is what it worked for me. I mean, I worked really hard to become more calm. The acceptance of my life right now is becoming more important for me. But at the same time, nobody has to reach this point where I'm right now. They have to find their own way. Sometimes, for example, in my case, my daughter was very, very young. When you are talking about what child who died at 15 years old, I mean, even if he has a younger brother about 12 years old, the grieving is completely different. The isolation, the depression that you get in that point is completely different. For us, it's like the depression, it was something that we shared together as a family. We couldn't do it because she was very small. And she was very helpful because she was only looking for happiness. She was all the time trying to make us, laugh, trying to, play any kind of game. Every time she realized that we were like crying or very sad, she used to make us all the time, okay, let's go to watch a movie. She was that, in that sense, she was an angel in that sense. For us, she was the best thing to happen to us in that situation. But at the same time, when she was sleeping, we felt guilty to be happy. That's why I was talking about the guiltiness and then acceptance. It was a process. But then if you lost someone at that age, like 15, 12 or 10, the process is completely different. You have to reach that point in your own way. The best thing to do that is like talking to each other as a family once in a while. Like, okay, now if you are doing your own grieving or you are doing your therapy individually, it doesn't matter. Maybe it's the only way he can feel out of this bubble of the house, or maybe the depression that he's putting himself or each of one. So the formula is something that you have to find it for yourself, for your family. Maybe my family doesn't work for her.
Yeah.
Or maybe some pinch of things that I'm talking about this in this interview, maybe it helps to have certain different points of view. It's helpful, always is helpful, but not every time the formula is going to be the same for each of us. And this is my point. This is what I think.
In that respect, Mansha, you're in the Canary Islands, and Isa,
Yes.
you're in the Balearic Islands. Do you
Yes.
feel that that there are the resources and the services available to people, to families like you that suffer the loss of a child of the family? Is there places for you to go to? Can people access help easily? Isa, here in the Balearics, has it been something that you've had to pay for, or is it something that you found quite easily, the professional help?
Well, I went to a grupo de duelo, grieving group. From the beginning, it wasn't very expensive. It's okay. They're gonna be at the fair on Saturday, and they really help a lot. But they didn't have a group for teenagers, which I could have. They started a group last summer, but when we really at the beginning, they didn't have a group. So they had to my husband, because of the language, because he's English, he's Spanish, so that good. He had to go to individual therapy anyway, but I don't think he had like a group. That's my feeling anyway. And my son as well had to go to a psychologist.
Right.
So yeah, sort I suppose it could be more resources, but yeah, I could find them easily.
That's quite worrying, really, that there wasn't anything for teenagers, because
No, I didn't find anything
even being
specific for
teenagers.
that, for grieving for the loss of
Yeah,
a loved one.
yeah. And what about in the Canaries, Mansha? Do you feel that there's enough resources for people to be able to access?
Yes, they are. But the thing is that in my case, uh, I talked to him with my husband and asked me if he feels like going to therapy, but he was very concerned about the loss of our daughter, and he preferred to keep his isolation and his own process by himself. He didn't share with anyone. Even I never go to therapy. But the best therapy that I got, it was in my case, my daughter and my diary. Then slowly, I remember when I talked with my sister, she told me about one good therapist. And she told me if you want to talk with him, he's prepared, because she knows her very well. But I don't know why. When I decided to do it, something happened and stopped me to do it, because I was busy with other things, and the diary was something that it was helping me a lot. I don't know, it's like I was absorbed with the idea of writing, and when I suddenly I realized it happened 2 years. So I don't know, in the beginning I did take resources. I find it out in the hospital in Canary, in the Candelaria hospital here in Santa Cruz de Tenerife. And in Las Palmas, there are also therapists, very good grieving groups, a lot of them. But then I found out that there is a grieving group. But when I decided to go, when I planned to go, I don't know why, never happened. Never happened. But there are a lot of them. They are very good grieving groups. Like when I talked about it, they are working very well here in Canary Islands.
And would you say that in the hospitals that you were well served in that moment?
No.
Before you had to leave?
Not in my case.
Not in your case?
No, because I remember once everything happened, they just told me to wait and prepare all the papers just to make sure that everything was well done. And once everything it was over, I remember we were preparing everything for the funeral. And after that, I never have a call. I never have any contact from the hospital to make sure that we are, well served about the grieving groups or any kind of information that we can help us. Never. I never had that kind of approach.
And Isa, in England, how did you feel that the hospital were when you had to say goodbye to Juan?
Even if he died suddenly, but we spent around, I'm not sure exactly, but around 8 hours with him. He was in a coma, and he died in Southampton Hospital. and the people, they were very good. They were, now looking back, I think they were very prepared. Anything they were asking what we needed, and anything
No,
we
in that
needed,
sense,
we wanted
yes.
to ask. They gave, we didn't have to wait. They were there for us, and yeah. That we did, they gave us a box with all sorts of resources and as well some memories. We did printing of his hand, and we cut a little bit of his hair, and they let us put his favorite music. So it was terribly sad and horrible in a way, but somehow beautiful, the way the way it was, in a way, you know.
Do you remember, Isa, last night we were at the Dr. Enrique Benito conference, and one of the audience asked about if there was any way to create ritual. Would you feel that, did you have enough ritual, as it were, to then leave the room?
Sorry?
Do you feel, with them giving you a lock of Joan's hair and taking the print of his hand, that brought you enough comfort to then be able to say goodbye and leave the hospital?
Well,
or do you think more
not really, but not really, because it was so sudden and so horrible, terrible, everything. But definitely it was the right thing. It was absolutely, everything was absolutely right, and they were there for us. So well, even my husband thought he wanted he wrote an email to them saying thank you.
Yes.
Without, for his own idea, he consulted me, and I thought, yeah, absolutely. I think they were very good. But obviously,
Yeah, the hospital, yes.
the pain. Well, thinking about it, I don't cry very often, but it really, my emotion, I can feel the emotion again in a way. So no, it was so hard, so difficult, having to say goodbye to your son. That is just. But definitely no complaints at all regarding them. It's just it was really, really hard.
I agree with you, because I even don't have any regrets. They were wonderful. The way they treated us, the way they cope with all the situation. They sat down with us, they explained what happened. They make sure that we understood what kind of illness she was going through. The doctors were very, very well prepared, and they were very kind with us. They allow us to even to take a priest there, an Indian priest there, to make sure we can do there the last rituals for my daughter. They allow us to just bring our priest. So for us, it was wonderful. I can't complain about nothing about the way they treated us. The hospital were very well prepared. They were very professional. And I'm very glad the kind of team I got in that sense. Wonderful. But the thing is, at the end, when you, like she said, the moment they tell you that it's over and she's dead, and the way they start crying when you say, okay, I know you did your best, you try to help her, you try to just make her sure that she's gonna survive, and you couldn't. After all, I want to thank you. And I remember the faces of all the professionals, the nurses, the doctor, they were stuck. They were so shocked, and they started crying. They have to turn around. They went away. They couldn't stand there. Wow. And there is something that the doctor told me, the pediatrician, he was the owner. I mean, he was the one who was with the team. And he was like, my God, what you have said, you are realize that you have been very kind to us, and the warmth that you have shown us is something that is not very common. I said, what can I do? They have done the help. You are not God. I mean, you can try to make her survive, but if you can't, I can't complain about that. I have seen what you have done for her to try to make her to survive. If you can't do it, there is no point.
Well, Mansha and Isa, we're actually coming to the end of this, and just briefly, is there something that you wish to say to everybody hearing your story? Is there anything you'd like to finish on? apart from Mansha, obviously, the book is available in Spanish and in English.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You're so good.
Yeah. But and also don't forget that on Friday at 6:30 you'll be speaking in Spanish about this as well, and that's part of the festival down in the Canaries in the library. I'll share the information afterwards. Is there anything, Isa and Mansha, that you'd like to finish on, apart from, of course, your beautiful children?
I like to say, I hope that can help somebody. If that what we have shared, if it has helped somebody, I will feel really happy.
I agree completely.
Yeah,
this is something that we are sharing together, just to make sure that we are sharing our story to people, to understand that there is always hope.
Yeah,
there is always another way to just overcome these kind of situations, and we are here to share our story to help people to understand that they are not alone. There are a way to overcome, to embrace life in another way. And you have given this opportunity to us, and we are very grateful. And a part of that, I'm very thankful for this chance and this opportunity to speak about our story. And after that, I can't say anymore.
Thank you, Mansha, and thank you to Isa, and especially thank you to your children for the difficult lesson that they've taught you. But as Mansha, you've said, you are the better version of yourselves for them. And I thank you, and I thank your families, your husbands, and your children as well, for allowing us to just touch briefly, because of course in an hour this is a bigger story than just 1 hour. But I feel grateful to the both of you for taking the time to allow us to be a witness to what you've gone through. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure of mine. Thank you very much.
Okay, and thank you, Isa, and thank you to everybody for joining us here at Festival Dando Vida a la Muerte. And remember that Mansha has got a talk this Friday at 6:30. It's an online, and it will be shared eventually. And Isa and I are both on the committee for the festival, and we'll be busy with conferences, films, fairs, and all sorts. So thank you, everybody, and thank you to Mansha and Isa.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Glynis.
Thank you.